Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so I'm going to see if I can share my screen. Okay. Ooh. Uh-oh. Can you see that?
There we go. Yep.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. And I'd like to thank the council and President Circo for allowing me to make this short, I hope, presentation. And I'm going to try to fly through about the first 20 slides because I think you already have that material. And then there might be some new material after that. So first of all, I don't know if our town officers are here, but this is Sergeant Patrick Kep, Montgomery County police officer who lost both his legs after he was struck intentionally, it's believed, by a car on 270, and the perpetrator of that incident is being charged with attempted murder. But anyway, our hearts go out to Sergeant Kep and his family. So I'll just try to fly through this because I know I don't have much time. So we've studied the police program over the course of the past 2 years. President Circo and Councilmember Rovak asked the PSC to evaluate the police program, and that's what we've done. And these types of issues are somewhat difficult to tackle, but I applaud the council for taking this on. And then I'll just go back here. So just to recap, this slight correction, because in the memo that I sent out, I said there were 7 incidents. It was actually 9 because I found 2 additional incidents in the police activity log, which there's been a problem with it being filled in properly, but it's 9 incidents for during the course of this year to date. During that same period, there were a total of 71 police dispatched incidents in Somerset. So our town police responded to 9 of those, which is about 13%. The remaining 87% of incidents were responded to by our regular 2nd district county police officers. So even without our county police, even without our town program, we still have a robust police presence. Now I'm going to try to fly through these. We examined the police program from 5 perspectives, and I actually emailed, I think I emailed my presentation to Matt, but I'm not sure. I emailed it to all the council members, but in any event, and I hope you can see this.
We can see it.
Okay, good. So we looked at it from 5 perspectives. The impact on crime deterrence by looking at data. We looked at the police activity log to see the actual activities of the police. Looked at statements by town officials regarding the activities of the officers and the benefits of the program. Statements about the program from the other 2 committees that have the greatest interest in this, traffic committee and the E&I committee, and trends, particularly in Montgomery County regarding law enforcement and traffic safety and public services. So again, no one's questioning the quality of our town police officers. I've worked with them, I've met with them. And so the issue is not really the quality of or dedication of our officers. The issues are really, does the town's police program provide a good return on our investment? Is a good fit for the town, and are there more effective and more fiscally prudent alternatives? Does the town have the resources to manage it? A little bit of history, and I'm just going to go through these really quick because I want to get to the memo, the staff memo, because I think it's really important to address some of those issues. So here's a little bit of history. Started in 2007. In 2022, PSC made recommendations to the council Not all of them have been implemented yet. 2 committees with subject matter jurisdiction, Traffic Committee and the PSC, have concluded that the police program is not effective. The Traffic Committee wrote a letter to the council stating it's not increasing stop sign compliance or general traffic safety, and they're looking into alternative methods. I'll just skip through some of this. E&I Committee, at the council passed a resolution at the request of the E&I Committee, in which it said it resolves to continue to examine equity and inclusion in the town's own business practices, including policing. So that's the 3 committees that had a pretty strong stake in this. Seen this this chart in the memo that we sent, and it's in the council packet, so I won't go over it too much. But the bottom line is our crime rate doesn't vary much. We always have a kind of a low level of crime, regardless of how much we spend on the police. And then not much opportunity for police actions in Somerset. And it's not a commentary on the quality of the town police. It's just more the quality of our town and characteristics of our town. 9 incidents, an average of 1 emergency every 3 months. 2 calls that they responded to were actually outside of Somerset. 0 arrests in the last 5 years. And this is all according to the police activity logs that we have. 1 ticket, possibly this year, 5 warnings. Police don't patrol or generally drive around town.
Mr. Vaswani, this is
Yes.
Councilmember Kumar.
Go ahead.
Is that a positive outcome that we have low crime? Could that be considered an impact of police presence?
Well, it's a good question, but when we looked at the data,
We didn't suspect that by intent.
didn't seem to matter how much money was spent on the police or how little that. And in fact, even as we're spending less money this fiscal year, the crimes are actually down.
I'm
And
just wondering, in your analysis, did you consider the sort of deterrent impact of police presence? Or if there are any benchmarks from other towns, just the presence of police presence, does that have a deterrent on small dollar crime, car theft, things like that?
Can we just say, like, I think that, like, let's just let Kumar get through his presentation first, and then we can maybe save questions. What do you guys think?
Yeah, try, that's where we time it, so present for about 10
He's
minutes.
got a lot of pages to go.
And then there'll be like 10 to 15 minutes of questions and answers afterwards.
Yeah,
okay, yeah, I'll be happy to answer that question later after I go through this. So anyway, the town staff memos that were in the September and October packet are really important, I think, to address. And so I'm going to try to hit on some of those points now. They're very helpful. They obviously advocate for a particular point of view. I didn't think they addressed the concerns of at least 3 committees. And I felt that they lacked data and needs a little bit of clarification. So I'm going to try to do that now. And I think this is the crux of those memos, is that there's a wide difference between the PSC view and the staff position. The staff position seems to be the town is locked into the police program. Therefore, we have to search for goals for the program and try to make it work, even in the absence of a clear need or a good return on investment. And the PSC position is that the town should evaluate the program and decide if it's effective, is it fiscally prudent, is there a good return on investment, and do we even need a police program? And I think that's what the council is going to have to grapple with. Sorry, the table's shaking here. So if I hope the council won't feel that it is locked into keeping the program, because if we have to struggle to come up with things the police can do for us, it's probably an indication that we don't need the program. A few other concerns. List of activities that were listed requires some data to provide context. And I would have hoped that the staff memos would have addressed the concerns of all three committees that have an interest in this. The staff memo doesn't even mention the traffic committee's September 27th letter to the council. It didn't address all of the PSC's recommendations, and it probably should have addressed the E&I committee's concerns embodied in the council's BLM resolution. So let me hit on a couple points in the staff memo. It says, actually, let me just see. It talks about rather than eliminating the program due to perceived inefficiencies, the staff suggests the town develop a comprehensive solution with a clear objectives to ensure maximum efficiency. But the fact is the inefficiencies of the program are probably unfixable. Little to no impact on crime rate. There's really not that much for the town police to do here. They can't drive around. We don't control their schedules. It's a high cost and it's not effective for improving traffic safety. And that was the conclusion of the traffic committee. Another aspect is this staff recommends tracking its effectiveness over time rather than simply ending it. And the fact is we've already done that. We've tracked it over time, and both committees, the traffic committee and the PSC, have concluded that it's not effective. So setting clear objectives probably won't help at this point. Now this is an interesting statement. The staff seems to be saying that the efforts by the town residents, the information provided by the PSC and the Montgomery County Police as a whole is a positive mark for the police program to some degree. And I don't really understand what the logic of that. It doesn't really explain how the town police program is responsible for the efforts of residents to take precautions and so on. But there's another issue of clear instructions, in which the staff says that the police require clear instructions and objectives, and it's unfair to hold our police to standards that do not currently exist. But the fact is the town has given the officers clear instructions and objectives, and I'll give you two examples. So this is just a sort of an interim slide. There is an issue here with the ability of the town to supervise and monitor and ensure the instructions are followed. It's a secondary issue. But back to those clear instructions, at an April 2022 meeting, Chair Hurwitz clearly conveyed the instructions to the lead town police officer that she wanted more traffic stops and more tickets. And traffic stops, tickets, and warnings have virtually stopped. And that happened 2 years ago. And this has been known for a year at least. And really nothing has been addressed with that. Another clear instruction was that the police activity log was to be filled out for every shift. And that's about as clear as you can get. But the use of the log has stopped. And PSC chair, well, I emailed the town staff about it in August, but no action has been taken. That log has not been filled out since early September. And that's kind of a critical part of this program. The staff says that quantifying the crimes deterred by the presence of a police force is a challenging task. I take issue with that. I think it actually is easy to quantify them. The staff says there's an intrinsic value in the mere presence of law enforcement, which might not always manifest as recorded statistics. But again, I take issue with that. The number of deterred crimes does manifest itself as recorded statistics. If a crime is deterred, that's one less crime that's going to show up in the crime statistics. And I think we shouldn't pretend that data doesn't matter. A little bit of context needed for the staff's descriptions of the police activities. It talks about responding to residents' calls about suspicious vehicles and unattended vehicles. So at the year to date, exactly one of each of these types of calls. In responded to by our town police. Now, there have been others responded to by the regular second district folks. Talks about monitoring as an activity, monitoring properties through during residents' vacations when notified through town hall. So that one threw me for a loop a little bit, because the reality is that there were none this year, none the previous year, none the year before that. There were 2 property checks in 2020 and 1 in 2019. And then the staff says the town police, to a lesser extent, ticketed and enforced for violations. So that's either an exaggeration or an understatement. The reality is that there was possibly 1 ticket issued this year to date and 5 warnings. So not much activity there. Town police have written community messages. So they've written 2. Staff memo talks about patrols, and just to clarify, town police do not patrol or generally drive around town because of the restrictions of their collective bargaining agreement. Just one small correction as well. The staff memo says officers spend between 15 to 20 hours per week. It's actually 13 hours per week based on the current budgeted amount, and that works out to 8% of the time. So staff has highlighted municipalities that hire the police, but it really didn't appear to do any research into those that do not. I don't know if NA means not applicable or not available, but I think it would have been helpful if the staff had explored why those neighborhoods decided not to hire the police, and that's highly relevant. Just an example, Glen Echo, sandwiched in between 2 major commuter arteries. It's got shopping center, a gas station, it's got a post office, it's got a major park next to it with thousands of people go to it. If you ever go to the Washington Folk Festival, a lot of traffic, a lot of parking issues. Same for Battery Park, Drummond. So I think the council, or sorry, the staff could have looked into that a little bit. And then the staff highlights or cites several municipalities that do hire the police, but we need to keep in mind that those municipalities have needs and environments that are very different from ours. Like Kensington's got 2 major commuter routes through it, shops, a train station. All the communities along Connecticut Avenue and Brookville Road, major problems with cut through traffic, turn restrictions. Even a Supreme Court justice who's pretty controversial and attracts a lot of protesters. So they all have their own needs and made their own decisions about why they should hire the police, but we shouldn't base our decisions solely on what other communities have done. And then kind of looking at the big picture, the staff memos really lack some specificity and data. They seem to be saying that the council should ignore the data in the PSC memo and instead base its decision solely on feelings and perceptions. And those are important. And I'll get to that in a minute. And we acknowledge that in our memo, but feelings and public safety is a very data-based operation these days, and feelings and perceptions need to be looked at in conjunction with the data, and that's what we did, and that's what our conclusions were based on. Now, it's interesting because the staff says, don't look at the data, look at these feelings and perceptions. But then when the PSC brought up the issue of feelings and perceptions, namely the some of the E&I issues and the town's BLM resolution, the staff memos ignored them. They didn't even acknowledge it. So there's some inconsistency here. And
Sorry, Kumar, hold on,
Yeah.
please. Just quick chat.
So I think we should focus on like what the Public Safety Committee's recommendation is for, continue along those paths instead of the difference between the staff memo that came out and back and forth. I think we should just focus on like what the Public Safety Committee is recommending.
Thank you, Shannon.
That's-
Yes, please. And also, can you wrap up in about the next 3 to 4 minutes? So we have time.
Sure.
questions.
Sure. Well, I just thought, no, thank you for, advising me about that. I just thought it was important to address the staff memos because often that's what the council takes serious consideration of. And so, I just thought it was important to address it. So again, I think I'm just about done.
Perfect time.
Just a few more slides. Again, not a criticism of our town police officers. I've worked with them. I've met with them. Actually worked with a lot of county police officers. They're excellent. And so recommendations, you actually have them in the council packet. So I didn't find any need to put it in the presentation. I can bring it up on my screen if you want me to, but just a few final thoughts. We've got excellent dedicated officers. The data show that the police program has little to no impact on crime. Not much opportunity for police action in town, but that's a good thing. That's the kind of problem you want to have. Our town police are here 8% of the time, and the town sometimes goes for stretches of 4 to 5 days with no town police officer here at all, just because they set their own schedule. Second district already responds to 87% of incidents in town, and it's interesting that crimes have actually occurred here in town, even when the police are here at the same moment they're here. Again, that direct connection, it's really available for free. Community policing is available for free as well. And then finally, the town has never assessed its liability or financial risk from this program. And that concludes my presentation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kumar. We'll go around and ask questions. I had, well, first off, this is a long-standing program. I want to thank the town staff for trying to juggle it as best they could over the last couple of years, because directions have been inconsistent at times, and it's been difficult to get the police because they have taken on hours as they had availability, not as we would direct them. So it's been an interesting program. I greatly appreciate the work of your committee and the other committees in taking a fresh look, analyzing, assessing the data. So thank you. I have one question about the data in particular. When we look at the response, if there's an incident, I would presume that if we have a police officer in town, the response would be swift. Do you have any data on the difference in response time between an incident in town, where with the police in town, and we're just getting the second district police officer?
No, we actually did not look at response times, and the police do track that.
Okay. I was just
So
curious.
theoretically, we could get it.
Okay. Thank you, Kumar. Robin, any questions or comments?
Well, thank you, Kumar, again, for your very thorough presentation. And I think you hit some key points there, no doubt about it. What value is a police program when the police are only here 8% of the time, set their own schedules so that we can't control which hours they're here, and they are constrained in what they do by prior agreements that have been set. So it's not like you have a functioning police force by any stretch of the imagination. Right? You've got to remember that. Okay, I'll stop there.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions, comments? No? Next.
Kumar, it's my understanding that the traffic committee is also questioning this program because the police officers don't do anything about the traffic, you know, they're not sitting on Dorset Avenue, stopping the speeding cars or crossing kids or people. Am I right about that? That they too think that this program is not right for us?
That appears to be their conclusion, and the letters in the packet.
Yeah, I can address it because I'm a liaison to the traffic committee and they did, that came up last month, actually. And what they said explicitly is that the police are not enforcing our stop sign and violations. And that was the intent when they were originally recruited. It's not working, what they said, so they're pursuing alternative methods. We already have some. The flashing stop sign are the first of those. We're doing further automatic enforcement. That's the way they want to go.
All right. Okay, that's all. Good afternoon.
Kabir?
The presentation was a little hard to follow, but I believe there's an accompanying report. So I'm looking forward to reading that if it's included in our packet. So thank you for whoever was responsible for this analysis.
Do you have any further questions though, Kabir?
I struggle to follow large chunks of that presentation, and so I'm struggling to come up with questions on it, and I'm assuming it's a summary of a broader report. It sounds like. So I look forward to reading that so I can formulate questions.
There is a 33-page report, Kabir. Enjoy it.
I read it,
Okay, you read it. I'm
I have
assuming.
read it. Yes, I have.
and so have I. I
Okay,
have.
okay, then I'm assuming it was enjoyable. So I look forward to reviewing it. And look forward to further discussion with the council on it.
Okay, thank you, Kabir. Shannon?
I don't have specific questions right now. Is this like, are we gonna discuss it too, or are we? We're just,
Yes, we discussed for a couple minutes.
do you want me to?
Yeah, so we're going in reverse order. So what are
Okay.
some of your thoughts there? Especially since you're talking to public safety committee, right?
Yeah, well, so I just feel like this issue's kind of gone around and around and around, for several years. On, what do we do? What are our goals? Why do we have the police in town? And, we really don't know why this program was originally established from my view. And, I think that we've had residents kind of bring up some questions like Mr. Khanna in terms of, the police sitting in various areas and what we can do about them. And I think we've learned a lot in this process as well. Like, we learned that the police really can't and won't make traffic stops. And they won't patrol around. So that's why they have to drive from area to area and just kind of park their cars there. And so for me, I just don't really understand. I don't think I understand why we would continue to have the police presence here like it is, because I feel like the data does not support that it really deters crime. And I think that, for having them just kind of park their cars in various places for long periods of time doesn't really, I don't know what we get from a town from that perspective. And like, I don't know what our money really goes for in that way. And it seems to me like we just kind of have continued to do it because that's what we've been doing for a while. And I think that it's really time to start with a clean slate in terms of, if it is something that people in town want, like what do they want it for? I mean, what does it do? We get good services from the 911 calls anyway. I mean, anyone will service our town immediately if there's a crime. And so I just don't really understand what the benefit is to the program.
Okay, I just want to. Okay, so first of all, so when this program was established, which is probably, is it like 20 years, Robert?
2007, I think.
Okay, so it was like 17 years ago, right? It was established because people were complaining about stop sign and speeding. But in those days, we didn't have an incredible staff to do research And so it was just thrown in.
Right,
It was thrown in. There was no thought on, all this analysis that we're all doing now. There was none of that. It was just like an emotional thing.
yeah,
So we decided to hire. I think I was on the council back, right? It was 17 years ago. Yeah, because I got like in 2008. So it was like, I would term like a raggedy decision. Because like all these facts that we're learning now, and I'm sure that the chair, he remembers all this too. So the program was set up, and then as I pointed out on many occasions, there were no policies or procedures. There was no research. Nobody was interviewed. Like the Montgomery County Police wasn't interviewed. The officers that were hired have never been interviewed. And so then it was dumped on the town manager. And then it's been dumped on future succeeding town managers. And then, of course, so Matt tries to write this nice report defending the program. Because there are people, when it was first formulated, it was mostly from parents that were concerned for the safety of their kids, right?
mhm,
Which was ironic. I've told the story so many times. It was so ironic. One of the people that was here that testified in favor of this program, demanding program. The next morning, I was walking the dog and I saw her race out of her driveway, speeding, and then went and go through 2 stop signs. So it all goes to some of the mentality of, the law is only applies to other people, not me. Okay. Then it's been dumped on all these future succeeding town managers. And then another thing is, 17 years ago, there were people here, like, and I'm sure Lucy Freeman, I don't know if she's here tonight, but is she here? Yeah. So there was this concern that Somerset would be turned into like a gated community, an unfriendly kind of place with police here all the time. Now, over the years, as the concept of community policing has been instituted across the country, it's been sort of sometimes the police officers here, and like I think when Marty Shaw fell or somebody fell, the police officer happened to be here just because of a coincidence. So I think it's really great that we are reviewing this. And we also are looking, maybe there's maybe whatever the needs that you all decide there are, maybe those could be served by having a private security service. I don't know, but that's what we're looking at. And so that, does that answer, does that give you better understanding?
Yeah.
Because I don't, and so we don't need, it's like, if it's not working, we should get rid of it. But we also should find out if our citizens, maybe all the citizens like the fact that there's police here 2 hours a week. I don't know. But so we need to make sure that if a change is made, that the community is informed properly. So that if you can the program, you don't have people coming and storming the town hall. But I mean, I totally applaud this process, and nobody should complain that it's been so, some of the things that the chair said, I don't necessarily agree with, because it's not fair, because we didn't really have a program in place.
right,
We just hired officers.
Yeah.
Period. Okay,
yeah.
that's my speech for tonight.
Yeah, no, it's not to
Exactly.
point fingers or there's nothing,
Right.
it's never here nor there.
Right.
It's just like, okay, we're, like today, if we start fresh, like from ground zero, where do we want this to go? If we wanted to go somewhere, or do we look to
Right.
the public safety committee's recommendation not to do this program? And then therefore, we also need to obviously write like a town journal
Right.
article and, let the town residents know and stuff like that.
And
You
another
know,
thing to think about is the population 17 years ago. I mean, how many people that were here 17 years ago are here today? Probably like a quarter of the town, right? So it's all new people, and maybe they, and I think most of the people that are that aren't interested in the program didn't live here 17 years.
Yeah,
Like yourself. So
Yeah.
anyway, so let's have that kind of discussion.
Yeah.
And not,
no, I agree.
I agree with Shannon, by the way, we should treat it like a resolution. In other words, if we decide we're going to eliminate the program, we introduce that at one meeting, have a journal article, and then vote at another meeting. It can be extended over a couple of months if we want to do it. It's not a formal resolution, but it's to get community input over that time. It's the point, and yes, a journal article, but also talk to residents. No,
Right, so I think that's a good path to follow to consider, you know, ending this current program. I think that we should, that dovetailed with that, we should be exploring what we do instead. If anything, maybe we don't do anything, but maybe we do look at hiring a private service, or maybe we do look at installing CCTV cameras. There are a range of options that probably should be considered instead of just.
But like, I think that like, before we consider and like look at options, like, we actually have to figure out what we would be trying to solve with it. And
That's
like,
good.
that's like the thing, like, we can call around and get security, you know, this guy pays this and this town does this, but like. What are we, like, as a
What do we
community trying to solve for? And I don't know what that, you know. It's not really traffic, it's maybe a little crime, you know, I don't really know what we're trying to fix, cause. We don't, you know, luckily, we don't have a lot of crime.
Right.
We do have bad drivers that roll through stop signs, but we
Right.
can't really stop them anyway. You know, so I mean, maybe there's, maybe it's putting the lighted traffic signs is what we wanna do, or you know, but until like, we have to figure out what we want as a collective group.
It would be interesting to hear what residents had to say, and I wonder if that isn't better done in with a town forum.
I just.
You know, where we have people come in and let us know what they think. I know if you asked me, I'd say, if I'm gonna have police presence here, I'd like them roaming around. I'd like to see them, and I'd like to see them stop the speeders. And that's my personal view, and I think that would be, the traffic committee, stop me, Robin, if you think I'm wrong, I think the traffic committee would like that kind of presence too. But, you know, I think we need to have a town forum. We have several months left on this contract, am I right?
Well, I mean, we don't have any I mean,
We don't have a
we have,
contract?
they sign an annual agreement to. That ties in with Montgomery counties for the whole year, but it's not locking us into any
Okay,
employment agreement.
so we had to go through.
technically, we've got money in the budget though for a full year.
That's right.
So we've got time.
But we have, so I think over the course of the next months, you know, we take a look at the timeline. We have a public forum, we talk about it, and then we come back and decide what to do. Leave things as they are, because I don't know that we should jump, you know, away from what we got. I don't,
Right.
you know, and then make an informed decision as a body.
Kabir, do you like the idea of a town forum to discuss this? To solicit input?
I think that sounds sensible, given the sort of implications of removing a policing program. I think people will have lots of different reactions to that. And I also agree with Debbie that it doesn't seem sensible to jump to a conclusion on this and share the mayor's view that it's been useful to step back and kind of look at and ask questions on it. The one thing I would add, maybe at the forum or in preparation for the forum, that as a council, we talk to the police that have been in this program. I encourage, as always, that we interact with them, and that will form a perspective on sort of the value they potentially bring or have brought to our town. So I just wanted to highlight that would be useful for us to do if we have a chance to do that.
We
That's
can
a
invite
great
them to the forum, but I mean, think that we're invited to this meeting, we haven't come, right?
No, we just,
We decided it might have been conflict to
Right.
have them here, but perhaps at the next work session, we would just have the police, we could.
Interesting to hear their opinion, that they've been sitting, you know, they've been sitting and watching, what did they see?
Right.
You know, let's see what they have to say, let's
Right.
have an open forum and let's go from there.
And if they can come to the next work session, yeah. that would be fine.
Okay,
We're waiting for jobs, but anyway,
well, this is one.
you decided this.
Okay, great. So the action here I'll take is I'll work with the town's, the mayor and the town staff to include this topic at the next work session. And hopefully we'll arrange for one or more of the town police officers or the second precinct representative to talk with us, so we can learn more about policing from the police
And what they can do here.
and what they can do, they can't.
There are restrictions on what they can do with that.
I suspect that some of the individual officers are very frustrated that. They're sitting in the car, they see somebody float through a sign and they just can't get them back.
Wave them on, hi.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what's really, I guess as Councilor Barr probably researched. I think when we originally hired them, it was before this current agreement was in place, right?
Oh, that's fine.
Because when we originally hired them, they were ticketed. Because I think some people got the tickets and they're like, you're not supposed to ticket town residents. I mean, it was just, anyway. We've come a long way in 17 years in terms of the functioning of the council and how decisions are made. So as I said before, I just really applaud everybody for digging into this. And not just keeping the program because it's there.
Right.
You know,
Okay,
and doing great analysis.
I really appreciate the support of the committees, investigation. Town staff seeing us through it all, and I look forward to continuing this at the next work session. Great. Next item, code amendment drafts, town notifications, application submission deadlines. Matt, can you, or is this just for Ron to walk us through?
I can just give you a very brief overview of it. There's two amendments. The first is essentially pushing the deadline for submission from the 15th to the 10th of the month. So it gives us about an extra week to review it administratively and yeah. I think Councilmember Roback had recommended pushing it back at least to the 10th as a starting point. So that gives us some more time to review applications, ensures that the submissions comply with the town regulations and other requirements. And I think even though it means that it needs to be 5 days later, I think it will be a more effective management of application systems. So I think it will increase the efficiency of the process, which I think would be appreciated on all sides. It also suggests, which we've discussed before, replacing the requirement for neighbor signatures with a more standardized and systematic approach where the town would be responsible for sending a notification via first-class mail and email. So that means that the most affected residents are notified in a uniform manner. And then the second amendment just codifies something that we talked about before, which is our regular practice, but just that we notify adjoining property members when a right-of-way tree is proposed for removal. So both of these would be tentatively scheduled for introduction in November and then adoption in December if the council moves forward with it. And I don't know, Ron, if you wanted to add anything to that.
No, that was a great summary, Matt. I might just add that with respect to the building permit ordinance that would modify the dates, we would also revise the provision that deals with permit modifications after a permit's been filed. If an applicant makes changes in the past, and we've debated whether that requires new neighbor notice and a new hearing. And we're clarifying the code to answer that question in the affirmative. Yes, if you modified the plans, town's going to send another 10-day notice to the neighbors and another hearing will be held.
Thank you. I don't have any questions, Robin.
Thank you. That does in fact capture the discussion that we had earlier. So those are appropriate. I agree with Ron that we should have an equivalent amendment that covers when a permit is amended by an applicant. So.
No, I'm good. Kabir, any comments or questions?
No questions and agree with Ron's suggestion.
Thank you. Shannon?
Agree.
Okay. So those are just, we'll be introducing those at the next meeting, right? Next regular council meeting. Yep.
That's right.
Great. Next agenda item, fall tree planting from PNRC.
Yeah, again, relatively straightforward. Usually we discuss this at the individual work session, but I just wanted to put it before you, just to make sure that we are good to move ahead. We have already notified, so let me take a step back. The PNRC has already reviewed the list and they made some suggestions. So the list that you're seeing is a reflection of their recommendations and conversation with Tolbert. And then there were a couple other small changes. I think 2 trees were removed from the list when the residents had some questions about it. And so Tolbert's recommendation at that point was we'll just take those off for now. We'll talk to the residents more and evaluate it further. So that could be a potential spot for the spring. But at least in one of these locations, I know there's multiple trees that are already there. So it might be an opportunity to see how they bloom and grow, and there might not be a need for an extra tree.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. Any other questions, Robin?
No, I have no questions.
Debbie?
Nope.
Kabir?
No questions. Thanks, Matt.
Shannon?
No question.
All right. Zoom. Next agenda item, parking study, traffic committee. So,
Yeah, so the traffic committee had requested the council approve a parking study in town. I'll just try to cover it at a high level, and then Councilmember Barr might want to add something as the committee's liaison. But when we did a sign inventory, one of the issues that came up, because a lot of our signs in town are related to parking, and our town code even incorporates some of our parking restrictions. And so there's a couple of issues. One is that our current code, which lists some of our parking restrictions, has some incongruities or inconsistencies with the actual signs that are out there. And then the second issue is, as you've all probably experienced, and if not heard from other people, is just that parking is a premium in town. And so when we have construction projects, it usually is an issue. Our office gets calls about, I've seen a car parked there for numerous days and I don't know who it belongs to. Can you look into it? Things like that. So with both of those in mind, I think the first point was their main point, but the second also in consideration. They are asking the council to consider a proposal from the firm that did that sign inventory to do a more comprehensive parking study in town. And so there's 3 different tiers. The first is the least expensive, which is what the committee is recommending, which is essentially just to do a town-wide evaluation, our existing signs and our code, and recommend ways to bring them into alignment. The second option, which I actually think would be interesting to look into, was combining that with an assessment, a more holistic assessment of parking and the feasibility of permitting parking throughout town. And then there was a third option that was kind of the Cadillac option, which did an even more thorough analysis of parking and offering strategic recommendations for us. all three of these, I should say, none of these three were budgeted for this fiscal year, so one of the considerations for the council is, do we want to do a budget amendment and take from our, we do set aside money in contingency funds for things that we might not have foreseen, but we would need to do a budget amendment. Or alternatively, do we want to get more, do we want to go through a more formal bidding process and either do it later on in this fiscal year or even put it in the bank for next fiscal year? And I don't know, Robin, if you had anything to add to that.
But just the traffic committee believes that we need to fix our signs before we can do anything else. In other words, we couldn't ticket anybody just now because there's inconsistency between what the sign says and what our code is. So even if we could ticket, we can't. So that means that we need to make things consistent. And as I understand it, the signs are informative, the code is determinative. In other words, we need to change the signs to align with the code is what we need to do.
So you're saying that the code and the signs are in conflict?
Yes, they are. In fact, EJ just very
Oh, cool.
bravely went around the town and has confirmed that is the case.
Okay, so one thing I want to say is that if to give some historic perspective, so and this is also related to the police. So let's say you came up with a new plan, a parking plan that didn't include any, it didn't include a residential permit program. You don't really have any way of enforcing it because we can't rely on Montgomery County to do it, they have the authority. But they don't have the manpower to do it. I mean, I remember like years ago when there's some really strange signage over here on Dorset. And I remember that every morning somebody would be parked illegally there. And this is when I first moved here before I was even on the council. And I would call the Montgomery County Police and they said, we cannot come and do that, like day after day. And I'm sure they can't do it now. So that's one thing we have to think about if we're gonna spend all this money on that. Because right now it's sort of like a lax thing. Now, in terms of residential parking permit, when I worked in the DC Council 40 years ago was when they instituted the program in DC. It was based on, complaints by residents and all that. And here's another speech I made for years, said one day, because of the urbanization around here and development, there will be a need for the RPP, residential permanent parking program. I think they have it in the town of Chevy Chase, right? But they have some kind of, they have greater restrictions than we do. And they're close to the Denver too. So my view on this is we've always, there's always been comments made and people have their own opinion. I think that now is the time that we get a professional, give some kind of analysis of what is the need or viability of a residential permanent program. So you get information on which you can make decisions instead of just based on other information we get from elsewhere. So I really think it would be a good idea if we hired a professional to assess the need and the viability of it. Because remember, if we put a program in, that means we would have to probably hire staff to administer, because it's really big. You get the permit, so you get a permit. You're all familiar with these programs, like if you live in most of the district, I think almost every street in the district has it. And now they have an advanced program where one side of the street is residential permits, so outsiders can park there, and the other side it's limited just to residents.
24/7.
Yeah, pretty much 24/7. So anyway, if you have the program, all the cars have to have a permit. And then if you have guests, then you can get guest permits. And so you, I mean, it's practically, I'm sure it's a full-time job for a staff person. And then, because, you know, eventually people are gonna figure out they can park here. And get on and walk to the metro and get free parking all day. I think there are some people, but not that, I don't know how many do, that's why. Do they, yeah, because I know that, so where our family home was in Bethesda, which is like a 25-minute walk to the Bethesda Metro, there are now people that park there and walk 25 minutes to the Bethesda Metro. So, in here, we're like, what, a 7-minute walk? And people are gonna, more and more people are gonna figure that out. So anyway, that's my speech.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if we're really talking about two separate things here. One is street signage and compliance and conformity of the street signs in the town to the town code. And the other is whether or not we want to have a resident parking program.
Yeah. They are different. I mean, literally the traffic committee is saying fix our signs. That's the message. They actually are, I mean, I'd have to pull them again. They're not uniform in favor of the permit program. I think they see the cost burden associated with it, because Jeff is right, we need full-time extra staff to do it. And probably parking officers as well, because you've got to have some kind of enforcement.
You know, sometimes it's a deterrent. So the reason that people park in front of my house and walk to the metro, because further down also, there are signs that say you can't park here. So they work their way up
Yeah.
and on the next block, and I scare them away.
Oh,
Yeah, I do. I scare them away.
Well, that's, I mean, it's basically based on how scared they are of the sign. So
Right.
that happens a lot of places. Haven't you ever parked in DC where they come in and say, oh, you know, you're parked illegally and the police are around here now, so you better move.
Right.
You know, sometimes I park places that the restriction is up in like 15 minutes, but they say the police are around here, so you better move right now, you know. So
Well,
it's
and,
really-
I mean, I think that on our street in Little Cumberland, there are those signs up, and so we don't really have a lot of people that, I mean, all the people that are parked out here are either going to town hall or they're residents, other cars that are just on the street. It's not people to walk through, so that's funny, they park all the way down by you.
Yeah. So I have another thought though. Do we have, as I was looking at this, do we have a sign problem or a code problem?
Yeah,
Or
can't we
both.
just like match the code to the signs?
Maybe we have to fix the code, then take a look at and make our signs match our code. You know, which comes first, the cart or the horse here?
Or is that what the study is going to be
Yeah.
recommending? Is it going to be potentially recommending code changes, or just identifying signs that don't match the code?
Well, I think that, yes, so I think that the study would. We could just in-house match it up.
That's what I was wondering.
I think what the study would help us with is looking at the law requirements of where it works, or you know, like fire hydrant parking, and making sure that we're aligning with best practice and other laws that we are bound by.
Well, another thing is, so I'm sure you all have a lot of good questions, so if you want to do because you would have Matt write the RFP, right? So then before you approve the contract, you would get to meet the vendor to ask these questions. Right? Because you can't, he wouldn't be able to possibly put all the possible to answer all your questions in the RFPs. The RFP is kind of general. But then when the vendor is hired, you'll understand where you're all which you really want to focus on.
Ron, I see, has his hand up.
Oh, he does.
Thank you. With respect to the chicken and egg question, I would suggest that the regulations that you're interested in enforcing should be decided upon first because the signs have to comply with the Maryland Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So there's a manual that dictates what the sizes are supposed to look like, how big, reflective material, size, messaging, and all that.
Okay, so. Well, we'll go to Kabir in a moment. My initial thought is. I like option one, it's a first step. We focus on trying to understand where we stand today. Current situation by general consensus is inadequate. And the cost is only estimated to be between $8,000 and $10,000. I think we can find somewhere in the budget to do it. So that's my thought. And I'll go to Kabir and then we'll go around. Kabir?
Yeah, I was gonna say it would be worth taking the next step here. And it might be useful, maybe just scoping out, Matt, maybe just take the next step and just scope out what specifically we want. You know, for example, we may want to add or remove signage as well as part of this. We may want to change the zones where we allow parking, you know, period. And so there might be different aspects of this. So I wonder if we can like write out that, because I think what you got was a preliminary, right, scope of work from this firm, if I understood.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
more or less correct.
And as I read that, it just kind of word by, you know, it just kind of corresponds to your requests and breaks it out. And it might be useful to maybe take another step to scope it out. And then I tend to agree with Steve. I think no reason to wait till the next fiscal year, given the first level costs. We could do something in the 8 to 10K even sooner. But it might be useful to maybe take one more step and just scope out, because there are different elements here. It might be worth to put that in paper first. Maybe EJ can take that on. I don't know if he's in the room to do that.
Yeah, I think it's a great suggestion. So unless Robin or Shannon or Debbie have some other ideas or concerns.
Just a little caution that if we are thinking about changing the code at all, the traffic committee should first of all comment on it and develop recommendations.
Absolutely. Well, my thought is just to ask the town manager to develop a draft RFP for presentation to us at the next work session, so we can review it in more detail. It's like just taking this one step further. And your comment about engagement with the traffic committee is spot on. That's something that should be part of it. Yeah. Okay. Good. Town journal privacy communication committee.
Is it added online?
We're well ahead of schedule now.
He is here though. He's prepared.
He's always prepared.
Always prepared.
Take it away. You're muted.
Good point. Okay, so the basic issue arises from the fact that we have a change in the way in which the journal is archived and shared to the public as a result of the new website. And you can find on our new website the current issue of the journal. You can find this lovely archived attempt that's been made, issues of the journal going back years. And the website is open to the public, which means anything in there is available both to town residents and to people who aren't town residents. And one of the aspects of town journal style is that when we discuss the activities of a resident, we provide their name and their street, so that internally we know who this person is and where one could find them. That might be a problem for a person who would rather the world didn't know where they lived. and for whom that kind of information maybe shouldn't be made public. And we also, the committee discussed this particularly with respect to children. For example, the typical newcomers party article in the journal will identify a child, their names of their other family members, and their street, and have a full face picture. And there are a lot of folks these days who do not want their children's pictures shared online. We haven't typically asked permission to share those children's faces online, their photographs. And I think it's a real issue if the journal's going to be on the website, how we handle this.
And give your recommendation.
Okay, so our suggestion, in the olden times, before the new website, the journal was available online, but password protected. The problem is that for that mechanism, the password, a lot of people had trouble getting passwords and getting the archive to work. There is a plan for the town journal to put the town directory behind a password behind a wall that protects privacy. And Matt, I don't think I'm wrong here. I'm pretty sure that doesn't exist yet. And the idea here would be that the town journal would be put on the website behind that same wall as the town directory. So that's the suggestion.
And given that, so I've been discussing this with the editor and technically I'm the publisher. I think given that we have this new website that's highly functioning, that password protection is really the only way to go. And because we do want, I think over the years, it's so important that we do continue to operate the way we do with the journal, because it really builds community to identify, as the editor pointed out, like where they live, and it's available in the directory anyway, so that's password protected. And then also, I think it's also nice that we do have children's photos, because it also builds community, and as long as it's protected, I don't think anybody's going to object.
The other thing we found is that members of the swim team actually have a permission form that includes some kind of permission to use the children's pictures, but I don't know under what circumstances or conditions that applies.
Well, I mean,
They have
if they have that form, has it ever been approved by anybody? I doubt it.
No, they have this form where when you sign up, you sign your kid up and you
Okay,
sign.
so has that ever been reviewed by the town attorney?
Probably not.
So that should be reviewed.
No,
by
Mr.
the
Mayor.
town- That should be reviewed by the town attorney. That's a whole other issue.
And Ron, do you have any thoughts or observations on this privacy, legal constraints or concerns for the town?
Yeah, Matt and I have discussed this a little bit. Ultimately, the newsletter journal is a public record, so if someone requests it, we have to hand it over. I think you could start with a subscription-based arrangement, but it's still a public record, subject to inspection requests. If a request is made, we could then evaluate whether the Public Information Act allows us to redact photographs of children, addresses, and the like.
But let's face it, Mr. Town Attorney, no one is gonna request. Yeah,
I think it's
do we
probably
think-
unlikely.
Do we think any, the other thing that we would have, if we didn't do this, what we would have to do is say at events. We can't take pictures. Or we can't put them, how do we have to ask permission? I don't know. This swim team, that sort of disturbs me that the swim team is doing that without any. That should have legal review, but
I just wrote myself a note on it and
it's your liaison.
no, it leads on to the.
Well, I think
committee.
it just says sign here if you
know.
if you don't want your child to be.
I know, but
photographed.
all your documents should be reviewed by the.
Who's in charge of this?
Who stays on the team committee?
What is-
Is it Kabir?
So we'll talk. to-
Oh, no, I am.
Shannon,
Oh,
it's
you are.
Shannon.
Okay, so I just.
Anyway, anyway,
Your side.
Although I cannot
I don't
avoid
wanna-
the
I don't
full
wanna
committee
go-
in my
I don't wanna-
household, Shannon is the liaison.
I don't wanna go off on a tangent. I hope you and I do wanna also say publicly about the outstanding work of our editor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
She is. You know, it's been a crescendo. We've had a lot of great editors, but we're now. Because this is the first time, I think no, maybe it's Barbara was the editor and the chair of the committee, but. But anyway, she's a great editor. In so many ways, we have a great time together.
Thank you.
Learning, relearning grammar and all that. Anyway, so I think that's an excellent, and of course, the committees does a great job.
It's a
So I
great
think
committee.
So is this something that would be by regulation, Mr. Town Attorney, not by a code amendment? It would be.
That's right, yes.
Don't we
this
have
is-
policies and procedures for the, don't we have policies and procedures, the manual for the journal? Maybe not.
I don't think
Are
so.
we intending to discuss this? Just wondering if I can weigh in, or when would be the right time?
Absolutely, and we'll go around more. I just had a question.
Great.
For Matt, so do we have a firewall that's available? Or how is the directory protected right now?
It's not-
Is it behind the firewall, is the password protected?
We don't have the directory online right
It's not
now.
allowed, okay.
So we have inquired about a firewall for it, and are kind of in the midst of figuring out what the best solution is for it. There's kind of a few different ways we can tackle it. It's doable.
Okay, so I think that the action here is to put the town directory and the town journals behind a firewall to be created.
Right.
I think that's it, and we'll go around, and questions and comments, Robin? No comments. Abby?
I agree with what you said. Let's put it behind the firewall and make our lives easy.
Kabir?
I have just three things here. I agree we should, first of all, thank you to Leslie for raising what is an extremely important issue. So I appreciate bringing this up. It was a blind spot, I think, for us. And I think it makes sense for obvious reasons to put it behind, make it password protected or behind the firewall as we were discussing. I do agree with Ron, however, that we may need to put a disclaimer or something up top that says, if you would like a copy, do a submission, because there might be journalists or, and I think effectively this is a public document, produced with public dollars. So technically it needs to be accessible publicly. So I kind of tend to agree that it adds up in my mind that we should at least create some mechanism for that. And thirdly, I do think that if we publish a child's photo in the journal, we probably should get a release signed by that family. So whether it is firewall protected or not, if we've not been doing it historically, it's probably wise to do it moving forward, to just get a release signed. And I suspect that release could cover, if we so wish, at times usage of certain photographs for our social channels that EJ, I believe, has been developing. So I think there's some thought we need to put towards creating that release. So I would do all three things.
I think that's a good idea. And one thing that can be part of, when people move here, there could be like a check-in and you sign whatever for your kids, and then somehow we get all the other kids who already live here. I mean, that makes complete sense to me to do that.
Because because it's 99% of the time when nothing goes wrong, it's all fine. But the one time or the 1% something goes wrong,
Right.
that's when it'll become an issue. And so given that we are more online, it's probably wise to do that.
Ron, do you have your hand up? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Another issue came to mind. To the extent we use the Journal for Open Meetings Act notices, which I think we currently do, they have to be available to the public at large. So we might have to shift meeting notices from the Journal to the website or, some other.
That's a
Some
good
other
point.
We
That's a good
talked,
point.
we've talked about that before, because actually, the only meeting notice that we put in the Journal is the town meeting notice with the agenda, but what's put in the Journal is rarely what the agenda that we use. So it would be, I think it'd be a lot easier for the editor and for me if we don't even put it in the town Journal. Because it doesn't, there's no purpose. I mean, that's from years ago, that's like from years ago. But there's no reason to put official notices in our town Journal, honestly, because we have other ways of communicating that now. Don't you all agree?
Yes.
Yes.
So it's my understanding, I'm sorry, I don't have my hand up.
And we may have to scrub the code. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the code has,
Interrupt.
yeah, because there's a lot of outdated stuff in the code about that. Which when we were redoing the code, that's a place where we put a pinpoint.
Well, and also, like, depending on like when it gets approved, like sometimes. What's on the agenda in the town Journal doesn't make the agenda, and then people are like, what?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's confused. Like sort of Roback and others, and so yes, I think now is the time that we take the agenda and then it puts pressure on the staff to submit it by the date and wastes time, really. Don't you agree, sir?
Can we keep it in both places? And the only reason I say that is because there are, I believe, residents who still read the Journal and of a certain age and stage where that is still the way they are informed. So as long as we can put it on the website separately, we meet the requirement as Ron has highlighted, and it doesn't hurt us from just keeping it in the Journal as well.
But there's no reason to keep it in the Journal because it's never accurate.
I know, but
And the only reason it's in the, well,
All
I
right.
think that the residents can be trained if they don't see it
Okay,
there, then they say, well, where
fine.
is it?
Fine, no problem.
Where is it? Where is it?
It's always
Because
presented as a preliminary agenda.
Right,
And we could put a line in the Journal saying, for information about the upcoming council meeting, please go and give the link
yeah,
to
go to the
the
thing. right.
website.
Yeah, good, yeah, I'm sure we'll work it out. But I think Councilmember Kumar, you overestimate the number of people that read. I mean, look how many people come to our meetings, and so do you really think that they're relying on the Journal for the agenda?
Maybe just to make the agenda more exciting.
The agenda is incredibly exciting, so anyway, these are, we can't go wrong.
Okay, so
Yes,
okay, this is, I'm now down to the nitty gritty of what this means, pretty much. So for the upcoming issue, we will delete the agenda, is that correct?
yes.
Okay,
Well,
Or maybe not, because it's in the.
That's what I can't-
I don't think that. I don't think that that should be done until because I think the code.
I agree.
mandate, right?
the
Mr.
code
Fenner?
tied it up first.
The code mandates.
Or tied it up, location on the website for it. We need
Okay.
all of those
Yeah,
pieces.
we need a
sorted out, yeah.
chance for Councilmember Kumar to vote against the code change, but anyway, but
Okay.
we have to follow the code for now, and then.
And
So
then
that
deal
is
with
just
it.
a work session, it's not to tell the journal editor what to do.
Okay. What will happen with the archive at the moment, which is now open? Will that stay where it is until the firewall is created, or will it be taken down?
Well, I don't think that, there's nothing in the code about the archive, but it probably should be, right, Mr. Town Attorney?
Doesn't have to be in the code, Mr.
Or
Mayor.
in-
We
or
do
in-
have
or
to
in a
have a
policy.
document retention
Yeah.
schedule by policy.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I mean,
But
the
we
ar-
should have a link or something if people want to make a public request. So we put it behind a password, but also have, you know, a statement that says if you're interested, submit a request.
Right, I mean, the history committee should be consulted as well on the archive because it is historians who use the archive.
So what's the action here? Who's gonna do what in terms of?
Well, aren't you asking the town attorney to review all this and make recommendations?
I think that's just going to be. With regards to the town journal.
You
To,
know, then you can-
what the code requires in the town journal, not how it's.
And- But then you're gonna ask him to draft something, a policy regarding the passcode protections.
Are we?
Isn't that what you all wanted?
Oh, we do want-
Don't you want there to be a policy that protects the directory and the
Journal, yeah.
journal by passcode?
Yeah.
And I think that the town attorney recommended that be in some sort of regulation,
Okay, that
not
sounds
in the
good.
code.
Does that sound good, Ron?
Yes, yeah, I can do
Then
that.
he can also review the code to see.
And yeah,
What
and,
needs to be
and
taken
just to
out.
reiterate, you can't promise that those can be made confidential. You know, we can have that procedure, but ultimately if someone requests even the directory, you know, the directory is a public record as well.
Exactly.
But another thing that can be put in such regulations is the idea that Councilor Kumar had about having a link on the website to request information that is protected or whatever it is. But I'm not sure that as anybody could request information from the town directory, correct? Just the town journal.
Request the entire. directory.
No, I think it's more that because it's supposed to be public, what we do is we put it behind password, but we make it possible for people to request it.
No, I understand that, but that raises a good question for the town attorney, so it was, Councilor Kumar pointed out that the town journal is a public document. But so is the town directory.
Correct.
Right? So, but isn't there, can we deny any citizen of the world access to the town directory? And some
I've
kind of
not
privacy
researched that
law?
issue before, Mr. Mayor, but I believe the answer is possibly no, because the Public Information Act does expressly provide you can redact employee phone numbers and addresses from public records, but doesn't say anything about,
So see,
Directory.
it's possible that we won't be able to produce a town directory if we can't protect it.
There are
Well, or-
already, I'm sorry.
Or we
Because remember when the
change,
law,
or we change what's in the directory. For example, it doesn't include the children's names and ages.
no, but people would, but
People want that.
but it has phone number. Remember, the town directory is from years ago before there were any privacy laws.
Right.
So it's possible, you're all asking a lot of good questions. It's possible that we will not want to produce a town directory anymore because it might be. It's a public document.
Before we
People
go
already-
there, it might be worth Ron just investigating because
Well, yeah.
there has to be some new sort of privacy framework that allows
Yeah,
us to do
yeah.
this.
I'd like to point out that there are already residents who choose
Yeah.
not to be listed in the directory. So not
That's right.
everybody.
Very
is
small
upset.
percentage, though.
They have an opt-out,
Yeah.
So maybe we could change, maybe we could require people to sign some kind of disclosure thing that said that the information you're providing for the town directory is now public information.
yeah.
something like, I'm sure there's a way to protect everybody. Because I'm glad that
Yeah.
you pointed that out, because there are a lot of people that don't want, to do everything they can to hide from outsiders, which they have the right to do.
Okay, great discussion. Look forward to your inputs next session.
Yeah.
Last comment, Leslie.
There are so many good questions.
I've got a final question. I hope it's the final one. So in the conversation about putting together some kind of blanket permission, blanket waiver for the use of photographs, presumably by the town, but maybe by the journal or the website, I don't know what. I'm assuming that includes photographs of adults as well as photographs of children, but I don't know if the discussion was explicit.
Well, that's a good question for the town attorney.
I don't think we
Maybe
took
we
an
should have
action
it for
to-
everybody.
To develop a town. I thought the action was for the town attorney to look at the. Cookies.
No, but also, I think that's I think that's a good question to find out if we should require. I mean, there are a lot of adults that don't want their picture in something.
Yeah, I think while I said children, I do agree with you, Leslie. It should ideally
I
cover
think-
anyone.
I bet
Yeah.
everybody, I'm sure we
Yeah.
don't, yeah. Because,
Okay.
I mean, there are a lot of people that don't want their picture in public, right?
I think we just need to give folks the option because
Yeah.
we are going more digital, more online, and it's a different world when we do that. And so we just need to let them know. And I think people would value that we did that.
Yeah, I think we've got to get into the 21st century on these privacy things.
So this adds to your to-do list, Ron, to prepare some sort of a form we could use. I guess we have the newcomers party. We have everyone who's at the party sign whether or not they're going to have their photo taken.
Well, anybody
Somehow-
there, anybody, the only people that can't really be private are elected officials, because they're public.
Right, so everyone else has to indicate whether or not
Everybody else.
they want the picture.
And then probably actually,
From the
as
privacy.
the town attorney has pointed out, all the committee members are public officials and they're supposed to be sworn in.
Really?
Well, yes, that's wrong.
Oh, God.
They're all public officials.
Steve, I think I would let Ron and Matt, based on Leslie's framework, just come up with the next steps on this.
Absolutely, that sounds good.
He's all not.
All right, good stuff. Thank you. Last item, discuss special accommodations.
Yeah, this just came up not that long ago, and we,
Two instances.
this is in fact, twice, yes, thank you, Councilmember Bart, for pointing that out, actually, twice in the last couple of months. Now that's probably a little bit of a coincidence and abnormality, but nonetheless, the town is required to offer accommodations under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So this just formalizes exactly what the town's form and process would be. Ron's worked on this with a few other municipalities, and so this is just basically an updated draft for the town of Somerset.
My only suggestion is the final two lines. It currently reads, if a reasonable accommodation is granted, it does not have to run with the land. Couple of things with that. First of all, I would make it does not run with the land. Secondly, run with the land is a bit colloquial, so it does not convey a property transfer, which in fact, formal.
And Ron, this could be introduced and well, our process is typically introduce a resolution and then adopt at the subsequent meeting. So this could go on the November agenda for introduction.
That's right.
the three of you vote.
If, yeah, if the council would like to move forward with it.
Let's do it.
Concurs. Is there any discussion on that? Just looking around.
Right, I think we need a policy, it's fine.
Are we done? I think we're done.
Wow,
Whoa.
So you can get dinner early.
that's exciting.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
you
you all
all.
very much. Have a great evening.
Good night.
Happy
Bye.
Halloween.
Thank
Happy
you.
Happy
Halloween.
Halloween.
See you on Halloween.
Halloween.